When Pierre L'Enfant was planning the layout of Washington, D.C., what would become the National Mall ended here. The Potomac River used to flow really close to where you're standing now. Therefore, everything else that we will see on this tour is on new land. The Washington Monument is 555 feet, 5 1/8 of an inch tall. That's 169 meters. And it's 15 feet, or 4.5 meters, thick at the base. When the wind blows at 30 miles an hour, the monument sways up to 1/8 of an inch. Construction on the monument began in 1848 and would not be finished for over 35 years. But it shouldn't have taken so long. Funding for the memorial was originally done through private donations. However, due to political infighting, lack of funds, and finally the Civil War, the monument sat unfinished for 23 years. In fact, it looked quite ridiculous. Look at the image below. It was a stump right in the middle of the nation's capital to honor our nation's founding father. Finally, the Army Corps of Engineers were commissioned to finish the job. What they created was a subdued version of the original design by architect Robert Mills. The original design included this obelisk. Both Mills and George Washington were Freemasons, and ancient Egyptian symbols, such as the obelisk, were and are a popular symbol in Freemasonry. The obelisk was most often a memorial to the Egyptian sun god, and this masonry symbol of penetrating light was very important for a man of the Enlightenment such as Washington, who was trying to build a nation based on reason and merit, and not birthright. What was left out was a colonnade filled with statues, including a 24-karat gold gilded statue of George Washington surrounding the base of the structure. Now, the monument is encircled by 50 U.S. flags to represent the 50 states. When it opened to the public in 1884, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world. Months later, however, the French claimed that title with their Eiffel Tower in Paris. Today, the monument remains the largest freestanding masonry structure in the world. About 1/3 of the way up, you can see a dramatic change in the color of the monument. Mostly due to the 23-year construction break, builders used stone from several different quarries. And if you look real close, you'll see 3 different shades of marble. Unfortunately, the monument is closed, and aside from the view, what you are missing is a ride in the glass elevator, when you see several examples of the 193 official commemorative stones that lie the inner walls of the monument. All 50 states, numerous organizations and cities, several foreign countries, and even a few private individuals donated them. Now, in this news story from the New York Times, August 22, 1908, someone caught a ball off the monument.
On a wager of $500, Charles Street, catcher of the Washington baseball team this morning, caught a regulation baseball dropped from the observation window in the Washington Monument, 550 feet above the ground. A long line of prominent baseball catchers, including Paul Hines, Charlie Snyder, and Buck Ewing, have tried this difficult catch in the past without success. Though the ball was allowed to fall the full height of the monument with only the impetus of its own weight, by the time it came within reach of Street's mitt, it is probable that it had attained the greatest speed of any ball ever caught by a player. It is estimated that the ball was going slightly over 140 feet a second when Street met it, while a breeze strong enough to give the ball a slight twist added to the difficulty.
One of the first things that many tourists say when seeing the White House for the first time is, "That's it? It's so small. I thought it'd be much bigger." Well, you are approximately half a mile, or 800 meters away from the building. Also, you are looking at the residence, but what you can't see are the east and west wings of the White House, so the building is bigger than it appears. The White House has approximately 55,000 square feet, 5,100 square meters of floor space. It has 6 floors, 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, 412 doors, 147 windows, 28 fireplaces, 8 staircases, and 3 elevators. It has a doctor's office, a dentist's office, a tennis court, a jogging track, a basketball court, movie theater, putting green, and a bowling lane. Let's start with the surrounding 56 pillars, that represent the states and U.S. territories during the war. In the 1940s, Alaska and Hawaii were not yet states, and the Philippines were an American territory. From each pillar hangs two different styles of wreaths, one made of oak and the other made of wheat. The oak wreath symbolizes the nation's industrial strength, while the wheat wreath represents our agricultural strength. The southern side of the memorial is dedicated to the Pacific Theater. Likewise, the northern side of the memorial is dedicated to the Atlantic Theater. On this wall are 4,048 gold stars. Each star represents 100 lives lost in the U.S. military uniform. The U.S. lost just over 400,000 men and women to the conflict. Inscribed at its base it says, "Here we mark the price of freedom." The Vietnam conflict, though a war for all intents and purposes, is a complicated and still raw topic for many. You do not have to understand everything about the Vietnam War to understand this memorial. What you should know is that it was very divisive. Think about the protests in the 1960s and 70s here in the States. Much of the American public was against it, and began to take out the anger and frustration on the servicemen coming home. It was also one of our longest wars, lasting 16 years. Unlike World War II veterans returning home, Vietnam veterans did not receive heroes' welcomes and parades. Instead, they were spat upon and faced protest. This would be America's first Veterans Memorial. The names are not listed alphabetically, but rather chronologically by date of death or missing in action, beginning and ending in the center where the two walls meet. Though the wall is shaped like wings, one stretching towards the Washington Monument, while the other stretches towards the Lincoln Memorial, it feels like a circle, with the name of the first official American casualty at the top of the east panel beneath the date 1959. The names then continue down that east wing, making an invisible circle around, beginning again at the far end of the west wing, and concluding at the center with the date 1975. The Vietnam Veterans Women's Memorial, sometimes called the Nurses' Memorial. It depicts three women, one holding a fallen soldier, one kneeling with his helmet, and another standing as if she's looking for a rescue helicopter. The wall, as it's called, lists over 58,000 names of those men and women killed or missing in action. While the memorial is dedicated to everyone, it only lists the names of those who we have lost. The exact number of names changes each year, when names are added to the wall of those servicemen who died due to their injuries after returning home. In an effort of compromise after the criticisms of the wall, this statue was placed next to the memorial. Referred to as the Three Servicemen, it depicts three infantrymen gazing towards the wall. The statue was dedicated in 1984, 2 years after the original dedication. You are now at the Lincoln Memorial. Reflecting pools are common at memorials. The still water represents calmness and serenity. It is a place of contemplation and reflection. It is also in direct line with the Washington Monument, so it perfectly reflects most of the monument. The memorial's perimeter has 36 Corinthian order columns, one for each of the 36 states that made up the Union when Lincoln died. One of the most recognizable statues in the world, this Colossus Abraham Lincoln will impress you. Lincoln sits in an ancient Roman chair that symbolized power and authority. To your left, Lincoln's right, or his contemplative and thoughtful side, is his most enduring speech, the Gettysburg Address. To Lincoln's left, your right, you'll see a longer speech. This is the second inaugural address, what he considered to be his best speech. The Korean War Veterans Memorial was dedicated on July 27, 1995, the anniversary of the armistice that ended the fight. At the point of the wedge formation is inscribed in a plaque on the ground between the statues and the flagpole. Our nation honors her sons and daughters, who answered the call to defend a country they never knew and a people they've never met. Opposite the inscription along the pool is the iconic inscription of the memorial, that freedom is not free. The first thing that will catch your eye as you approach the memorial are the 19 stainless steel statues. They are just taller than real life and stand at 7 feet tall. They represent a squad on patrol, emerging from a forested area into open grounds in a wedge formation. They represent 4 of the major branches of U.S. military. The first thing you may notice is that you can see the reflection of the 19 statues in the wall. This was no accident. The original design called for 38 statues, commemorating the 38th parallel, where the demilitarized zone exists to this day. In order to fit the area allowed, the design incorporated the reflections of the 19 statues to bring the total to 38. Etched into the wall are the images of roughly 2,000 real Korean War veterans taken from photographs. The troops are also wearing ponchos, and there are juniper bushes and granite slabs that cover the ground of the memorial to replicate the difficult elements of bad weather and rugged terrain that dogged the veterans throughout the war. As you walk into the memorial, you should also notice that no matter where you are in the memorial, you will have the eyes of one of the statues looking toward your direction, on alert for the enemy at all times. Many people will miss a low-lying wall on the left side of the path opposite the statues. This wall lists the 22 United Nations member states, including the USA, that contributed to the Allied offensive, including troops, material, or medical supplies. They are listed in alphabetical order. The Korean conflict, as it was known at the time, was the first military action for the relatively new UN organization, and a test of its resolve. The USA did not individually declare war on North Korea, and it's important to note that there is no official treaty ending the war. Since 1953, an uneasy truce has been in effect. Thank you for joining Free Tours by Foot and Atlanta's Audio Tours. We offer a variety of tours in Washington, D.C., and there's so much to see more than just the National Mall. Visit us at freetoursbyfoot.com to see what else might fit into your visit.